Well, good evening, Cedar Falls, and welcome to our Monday night regular City Council meeting for September 19th, 2022. I'll now call this meeting to order with a roll call from Madam Clerk.
Schultz.
Here.
DeBoer.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Harding.
Here.
Ganfield.
Here.
Sires.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
All members present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And now tonight for the Pledge of Allegiance in honor of the reopening of UNI for our new term, I have UNI student Lindsay Hubble who's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So, Lindsay, the floor is yours.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. And next is on the agenda is the approval of minutes for September 6, 2022. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion from council or the public? So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That does pass. And Madam Clerk, do we have any agenda revisions tonight?
I have no agenda revisions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. So moving on for special presentations tonight, I have two this evening. One is in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month for October 2022, and a proclamation recognizing October 3rd through 8th as Earth Science Week. So I'll come around and Chief Bostwick. So, Chief Bostwick, I'm honored to read this proclamation in recognition of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Whereas each year, about 237,000 cases of breast cancer are diagnosed in women in the United States each year, and 2,100 cases in men. And whereas 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer, and early detection is the best protection. And whereas observing October as Breast Cancer Awareness Month provides a special opportunity to educate our community on the importance of making evidence-based decisions for long-term health. And whereas our community can create policies that support healthy living, make healthy choice the easy choice, and encourage women to access screening in an age determined by a woman and her provider, all to help reduce breast cancer incidence and death. And whereas each October, the Cedar Falls Public Safety Department personnel have conducted an awareness and fundraising drive through the sale of pink Police Division and Fire Division patches. And the Cedar Valley Cancer Committee will host the annual Pink Ribbon Walk Run downtown during the first Saturday in October. Now, therefore, I, Robert M. Green, Mayor of Cedar Falls, do hereby proclaim October 2022 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I encourage Cedar Falls residents to educate themselves about breast cancer risk factors, pursue healthy lifestyle choices, take advantage of subsidized options for mammography screening, and to support our fellow residents impacted by a breast cancer diagnosis. Signed this 12th day of September 2022, Mayor Robert M. Green. So, yep. And looking at the event, I'll give you a few moments to talk about the sale.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to just let you know that over the next month or so, we're going to be at Public Safety and City Hall. We're going to be selling these patches, the pink patches, both the police badge patch and the fire patch. I prefer the fire patch, by the way. You know. We're going to be selling those for $10, and that money goes directly towards the breast cancer awareness type programs. We're going to be selling those at several different locations other than public safety, also at several different locations. We're also going to have a new pink patch T-shirt. I had to say that slowly because I was not sure I was going to make it. And we're going to be selling that at several different locations, too, around the community to raise more money for breast cancer awareness. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thanks, Chief. And our second proclamation tonight is for Earth Science Week. So we have Sherman and Laura and Lindsay, if you'd like to come forward. Happy to issue this proclamation to you. and give you a few moments to talk about Earth Science Week. So this is Earth Science Week for October 3rd through 8th, 2022. Whereas the earth sciences are fundamental to understanding our natural resources, and whereas the earth sciences provide insight into the processes which have and continue to shape Earth's resources, and whereas the earth sciences help us to manage and sustainably use Earth's resources, and whereas the earth sciences provide us with technology to better understand how to explore and wisely extract resources for society's well-being, and whereas the earth sciences offer insight into a wide range of resources from within and on our Earth to the atmosphere that surrounds us. And whereas earth sciences open windows to better understand and appreciate our resourceful Earth. Now, therefore, I, Robert M. Green, Mayor of Cedar Falls, do hereby proclaim October 3rd through 8th, 2022 as Earth Science Week throughout the city. And I encourage all citizens to develop an interest in and an appreciation for the earth sciences in support of a better community and world, and to visit earthsciweek.org for a wealth of educational resources. Signed this first day of September 2022, Mayor Robert M. Green. So this is for you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
For your group. And you have a few minutes, up to 5 minutes, to talk about your day at the quarry.
Well, thank you very much. Mayor, thank you. And city council members and city staff members and all the viewers, hopefully, that are watching tonight. On behalf of those of us who work in the fields of the earth sciences, we appreciate this proclamation, which sets aside the week of October 2nd, 2022 as Earth Science Week. In conjunction with this proclamation, you and the public are invited to celebrate the start of Earth Science Week by coming to Sunday at the Quarry on October the 2nd from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. for programs and activities at the BMC Aggregates Raymond Quarry, located just east of Raymond, Iowa, to learn more about this year's theme, Our Resourceful Earth. And with me tonight are two future earth scientists from UNI's Earth Science Department. Lindsay Hubble and Laura Spees are here to give us insights regarding how the earth sciences help us to better understand our earth resources. And first, I'll ask Lindsay, and then we'll have Laura.
Thank you. My name's Lindsay. I'm a UNI student. I'm a senior this year, and my major is environmental resource management. So I initially got into this major because I was thinking about plastic. I was in the shower using my plastic shampoo bottle, my plastic conditioner, and I was looking around at all this plastic around me, and I was thinking, why do we use so much plastic when we know how bad it is for the earth? Well, we use it because it's convenient, it's a social norm, and at the time when it was invented, we didn't know about its consequences. But now we know about its consequences, and yet we continue to use it for its convenience and its economic value. So I started taking these earth science classes at UNI, and I was thinking about the idea of Earth's resources and how we manipulate them for our own gain. And of course, we have to manipulate them in order to prosper as a species, but we do so unsustainably that one day they're going to run out. And so I'm learning about natural resources such as carbon, which belongs in the ground where it can sustain life, but yet we're putting it into the air where it's harming us. I'm learning about things like Iowa's soil, which is obviously a huge resource where we are, but yet we don't always treat it well, and we are losing our topsoil every year that we till it up and spray it with chemicals. I'm learning about pollinators, which literally enable the growth of our crops, but we continue to degrade and diminish their habitats and therefore reduce their populations. So all of this got me thinking about the fact that we can change. When I think about the technological advances that we've made since the beginning of civilization, it's really amazing what humans are able to come up with. We have the brains and the resources to fix these problems that we have. We just need the priorities. If we can educate more people about how dire it is to fix our resource problems, we can innovate and find smarter ways to manipulate our resources. We invented plastic, and that was genius, but now we can invent the next thing, which will be better than plastic. We invented pesticides. Now we can invent the next thing that's better and will help make the soil healthier instead of breaking it down. I'm very passionate about my earth science education, and I'm really glad that I chose this major because I think that we all need to start prioritizing these things. Thank you.
I'm Laura Spees. I'm also an environmental resource management major. I come to the Earth Science Department at UNI because of a deep, appreciation of nature and preserving it for the future generations. I think learning about earth science is necessary for understanding and appreciating Earth's resources such as our soil, our water, our minerals, and our life. Especially, I work at the Tallgrass Prairie Center, and I really do have a deep understanding of the diversity that's needed from our prairies and our natural resources and our natural environments, and understanding how those plants that have been here for millions of years have become very, very important in keeping our soil in place and preserving our natural resource of soil, which is incredibly important to Iowa, and also understanding how we got that soil, and understanding that without understanding Earth's history and glacial till and things like that, we wouldn't realize exactly what a resource we have with our soil. And that's a big one for me in Iowa. But that's why I appreciate our Earth's resources.
We thank you very much for the presentation, allowing us to be here with you and to share this information. And hopefully, we'll see you all at Sunday at the Quarry. I told you we have a tremendous program plan. There are many agencies and groups out here with various kinds of programs and a lot of geology activities as well. Thank you again, and let's have a great Earth Science Week. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay Lauren Sherman. So with that, that takes us out of our special presentations. And we do have a few seats up here. If we have a few students have joined us, there's 3 seats available if you'd like to sit up, so you don't have to be up in the back. And actually, a few more seats have opened up here. Come on in. We're so glad to have you. So with that, I will open up the public forum where speakers will have an opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics relevant to city business. Does anyone wish to speak on a topic tonight for 5 minutes? We just provide name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Mike Dufel. I'm the guy that sent the email out to your standing committee meeting in the last council meeting. I had some questions about the Orchard Hill fire. Unfortunately, I was unable to make the meeting. I was on duty that night, and I couldn't lay off work. My biggest question is the tactics used in the fire ground there. There's 3 individuals out back spraying water on the roof. For what reason, I don't know. Those tack lines could have been better off used inside, putting the fire out instead of the outside. The video shows them spraying water on the roof, causing possible more damage to the shingles than need to be. And plus the safety issue of not having their full turnout gear on. I mean, and I don't want to be doing this kind of talk up here, but I can't let this go. These are issues that need to be addressed. And listen to Mr. Bostwick on the standing committee meeting last night or the last time, talk about people on social media need to be held accountable. I want to know who holds him accountable besides the public safety director, which is a police officer pretty much. He doesn't have really any fire tactics experience like that. Like I said, I have a hard time understanding that. And if there was something, those kind of actions were taken when the traditional firefighters were still on the job, would there be discipline handed out to them firefighters? So just for Plura, I know there was a controversy about looking for a third-party audit of the public safety. I would implore your council to just try and look at that again. I mean, if you want to have a better conversation one-on-one, I'm better at talking one-on-one than talking in front of a bunch of people. And I appreciate the council people that did go ahead and message me or contact me personally. So if you want to contact me, you have my email, you have my name and my number. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Duval. So we did talk in the last meeting about the turnout gear, the safety issue for that, and that is being addressed. The question about the spraying water on the roof, we brought up earlier. Would the department want to comment on that? And you can have a seat again, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I think what's being implied is that there was no interior attack, and there absolutely was an interior attack, and that's what put out the fire, and that was explained 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak for public comment tonight, or public forum? Okay, seeing none. Okay, yes. Welcome to the podium. Name and address for the record, please, ma'am.
Whitney Smith. I live on Hawthorne Drive in Cedar Falls. I just want to quickly say, just from doing some research, the answer to why the water was being sprayed on the shingles in the last meeting was never actually answered. Instead, the answer was then redirected to, well, you didn't see what we were doing inside the house. That is not, it's not an excuse. And at the same time, proper firefighting, from what I've learned in speaking with experts, you don't do an interior attack while an exterior attack is happening. It's dangerous. There's reasons why these guys have training, they have educational backgrounds. And I also would like to push for the third-party review of the system, because what happens when we have a lawsuit? We talk about $30,000 or so to have a company come in, but think about the millions of dollars in a lawsuit that the city could face. So that's what I want to say in regards to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else wish to speak for public comment tonight? Okay, seeing none, then I will bring us out of public forum and into staff updates. Mr. Gaines, do we have any staff updates tonight?
No, sir.
Okay. Would want to use this time, if with council's permission, to just give an update quickly on some comments for the Public Safety Department that had come in over the weekend. Had a chance to review some the body cam footage from that rollover incident, and along with Councilmember Dustin Ganfield, and I'd allow you to give comment first if you would like to.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just go ahead and read what I'd prepared. I'll take that opportunity, thanks. As chairman of the Public Safety Committee, and because I've had many engaged friends that are concerned about our Public Safety Department reach out, I was made aware of a rollover accident that occurred this past week and a subsequent social media post regarding that incident. I requested a review of that incident to ensure that I got the facts about what happened rather than believing a one-sided account on social media. As a privilege of my role, I've reviewed the body cam footage of the entire incident. I also read the social media post that was allegedly copied and reposted. I've also been in contact with the person who reposted the initial comments. It is not my intention to disparage our citizenry, nor do I raise any issue with someone exercising their First Amendment rights, but I find that the social media post was almost wholly inaccurate. It insinuated timelines, actions, and attitudes that were not present. I do not care to speak to the motive of the poster. However, I am deeply concerned that so very many people took that post as the gospel truth without so much as a second thought. While watching the body cam footage, I even thought to myself, this is how I would want my mother to be treated in response to how our officers handled the situation. And those folks going through a terrible day were treated well. I do not feel the need to go into all the details refuting these items line by line, but I wanted to comment on how disheartening it was to hear such an inaccurate portrayal of our civil servants' actions. We can do better than this, Cedar Falls. I don't think it's any secret that I personally question some aspects of our public safety department, but I wanted to reiterate that our officers did a fine job at that incident.
Thank you, Councilmember Ganfield. I also have a statement for that. A very detailed post was written up by a bystander to the Friday evening vehicle rollover at 22nd and Main. This person, who was present at the scene on the sidelines, made a number of very disturbing allegations against our public safety officers and Mercy One paramedics. In the interest of due diligence, I spent 3 hours today reviewing the half-hour body camera footage from both Officer Brooke Hoyer and Officer Gavin Carmen for the incident, more than an hour of recordings in total. I created a composite half-hour video of the relevant footage on a single timeline, which I shared with Public Safety Committee Chair Dustin Ganfield today at 4 p.m. at my home to view. Councilor Ganfield speaks for himself, but I can state definitively from audio and video footage that the accusations made are completely unfounded. In some cases, the bystander had only either a partial understanding of the situation, and the supposed quotes from the officer are total fabrication. I've heard the complete audio recording myself to prove it. I won't go into detail about the allegations because, frankly, they don't deserve the airtime. But I will state that in reviewing Officer Hoyer's entire footage as a senior leader of the public safety team for that day, she handled herself expertly, treated those in the collision with professionalism, courtesy, and empathy, and I'm very proud to have her as one of our city's guardians in the public safety department. The same goes for Officer Carmen and all the other officers whose body cam footage I didn't get to review today. Again, the allegations were completely unfounded, and in making this statement, I consider the matter closed. So with that, finishing staff updates, moving into special order of business. Number 4 is a hearing on a complaint issued to Zainab LLC, doing business as Up and Smoke at 2218 College Street for a second tobacco violation. Okay, so first we'll hear oral comments. And do we have any for oral comments tonight? Yes, sir?
Hello, my name is Sam Anderson, and I work as an assistant city attorney for the city. Here to present the complaint for a second violation of selling tobacco product to a minor, to Zainab LLC DBA Up and Smoke. I'm going to just call it Up and Smoke for here on out. It's easier to say. Just to give a little background, back in January, on January 24 of 2022, an employee of Up and Smoke sold a tobacco product to a minor. That employee pleaded guilty to the citation issued by Cedar Falls Police on March 4 of 2022. We filed a complaint, the city filed a complaint against Up and Smoke for a first offense on April 9. At that time, Up and Smoke entered an acknowledgement of the violation and entered into a settlement agreement to pay the first offense civil penalty at $300. On May 11 of this year, a different employee of Up and Smoke sold tobacco product to a minor. That employee was found guilty by the court around June 22nd of this year. On July 21st, we sent out an enforcement complaint of a second violation to Up and Smoke. They were served by the U.S. Postal Service on July 25. The second violation bears a penalty of $1,500. This time there was no acknowledgement or settlement agreement entered into, and so that's why we're here before you tonight. Iowa Code Chapter 453A of the Iowa Code allows municipalities to enforce the civil penalties instead of the state. And so I think the council has in front of them the complaint and the attachments with the backup information. So we'd ask for a vote of the council to find the existence of a second violation and assess the $1,500 civil penalty against Up and Smoke. It's a civil penalty, by the way, yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson. And at this time, would we allow the defendant an opportunity to speak if they're here tonight, if they wish to contest the complaint? Okay, seeing none, then moving over into Part 4B would be approving and authorizing execution of a order assessing penalty relative to a second tobacco violation regarding Up and Smoke 2218 College Street. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motioned and seconded. Any discussion from council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Ganfield.
I'd just like to clarify, it looks like on item 5, we have the option of a $1,500 civil penalty or a 30-day suspension. Is that an either or? And is one of them more preferential to the rest of the body? I want to clarify, I guess, is that in either one of those penalties?
I guess I'm not sure. I'd have to look at the code section, but in the past when we've done these, they've always issued the civil penalty as opposed to the suspension. Usually the suspension comes after the third one before you would suspend them.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Mr.?
I think that provides enough clarity. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion?
Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Cruz.
Do the citations accumulate annually, or are they any third violation into the future will trigger 30-day suspension, or how does that work?
I believe it's any third violation. I can look that up, but let's see here. I'm not sure I've got the code section in front of me. I don't have the code section in front of me, but I believe it just adds up.
Any other questions or comments from council on this item number 4B? And legally, for Mr. Rogers, would this require public comment, or would it prohibit public comment? Where we've done this?
This is the nature of a hearing, so if the accused were here,
Okay.
obviously, they'd get an opportunity to speak, but failing that, then there's no
Okay,
need for it.
that makes sense. Okay, so it's been motioned and seconded to approve and authorize execution of this order assessing a penalty relative to the second tobacco violation for Up and Smoke. This requires a roll call vote.
Or a voice vote.
Or this requires a voice vote. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that does pass. Interesting. Voice. Moving on to old business, item 5 is passing ordinance 3016, amending Chapter 2, Administration of the Code of Ordinances relative to adoption of revised city council meeting procedures upon its second consideration. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any additional discussion on the item from council or from the public? Okay, seeing none, then it's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Schultz.
Aye.
DeBoer. Aye. Cruz.
Aye.
Harding.
Aye.
Ganfield.
Aye.
Sires.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And over to 6, passing ordinance 3017, amending Chapter 23, Traffic and Motor Vehicles of the Code of Ordinances relative to prohibiting parking on certain portions of Utility Parkway upon its second consideration. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion and seconded. Any additional discussion desired by council? Okay, and just for the public's awareness, we did talk about this in our last council meeting, so that was the discussion and opening of it. We will have an additional reading for this if it does pass, so that on its third reading, that's when it actually becomes law. So anything remaining from council? Okay, seeing none, then it's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Schultz.
Aye.
DeBoer. Aye. Cruz.
Aye.
Harding.
Aye.
Ganfield.
Aye.
Sires.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So again, those items 5 and 6 will come before the City Council again for their final reading in our next meeting on October 3rd. So moving over to the consent calendar, these items will be acted upon by a voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council requests or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Does any council member request to pull an item from 7 through 10?
Mr. Mayor, number 9.
Number 9, okay. And any others? Okay, so for items 7, if we could put those up on the screen, items 7 through 10. Oh, excuse me, yes. Does anyone from the public wish to pull an item? 7, okay. Thank you very much for the reminder. All right, so we're going to pull 7 and 9. So does anyone request to pull 8 through 10, or excuse me, there's no request to pull 8 through 10, then is there a motion to approve 8 and 10?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, those pass and take us to item 7. And so does any council member have a question on 7 first? Okay, seeing none, then,
Motion to approve.
oh, you're right, yeah, so is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Now, if there's nothing from council as a request, please name and address for the record, and you're welcome to comment on the item. Also, I just want to make a note, too, that this is for the approval of the minutes themselves and is not a time to debate the merits of the items in the minutes. That was done in the past meeting. So this would be to determine whether the minutes themselves were accurate for what was discussed. Did it actually match what was discussed? So do your comments relate to the accuracy of the minutes reflecting what was in that, discussed in that meeting?
No.
Okay, so that would, thank you. It's an important distinction. I know sometimes people want to, in the past, have wanted to talk about the items, but that's what we have the meetings for. So with that, anything else for council? Okay, so It's been motioned and seconded for item 7 to receive and file the standing committee minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that passes and takes us to part 9, which is approving recommendations of the mayor relative to the appointment of members to boards and commissions. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Open for council discussion. Councilmember Cruz.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My concern is not the individuals being appointed, it's the process that we don't have what I would view as the transparency I'd like to see on who's applying for these different positions in the case of a new appointment. And then regarding the reappointment, the only criteria appears to be attendance requirements and actively contributing. What I'd like to see and learn is, are they following the mandate or bylaws of the board and commission that they're on, as opposed to just showing up, and then have more of a review by council of those components.
Yeah, I wouldn't entertain a review by council because that's the mayor's call of the appointments. And I have added in the ability for council members who are the chairs of the commissions or the chairs of the standing committees to weigh in. But at the end of the day, it's the mayor's decision. And that's, I'm never going to cede that authority.
But as city policy, we could have the council weighing in.
Well, with that, I mean, certainly you're welcome to bring that up as a referral, but it's not related to the approval of these items. So
It's a
I would have to
process
rule it out of order.
It's the process of picking.
And I still have to rule it out of order
Okay.
because we're talking about the approval of specific people. Please do bring it up as a referral at the end of the meeting to request to change the process. But as it is, the ordinance is clear that it's the mayor's appointing authority alone, with the consent of the council to approve the mayor's recommendations. So with that, any other discussion from council? So it's been motioned and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so then that actually takes care of our resolution, consent calendar, and takes us over to the resolution calendar, where these items will be acted upon by a roll call vote on a single motion without separate discussion, unless someone from the council or the public requests that a specific item be considered separately. So does any council member request to pull an item 11 through 21?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Cyrus.
number 19.
19, DS, okay. Any others? And any from the public? Okay, so is there a motion to approve the items in the resolution calendar from 11 to 21 minus 19 as shown on the screen? Is there a motion? Oh, yes, sir. Did you have an item you wanted to pull?
You need a second thing to Mr. Sayers. I wanted the same item pulled.
No, sir. With anything that the council requests to pull, it's automatic as a discussion item. So if any, and it's true for both the consent and resolution calendar, we're very happy to discuss any of the items if there's any kind of controversy or questions. So Councilmember Sayers has already pulled 19 on his own. No second is required for that. So 19 will be up. And is there any others from the council? I don't know if I caught that. Okay, seeing none. Any from the public? Okay, so those items were up on the screen before. So this is a motion, needing a motion to approve items 11 through 21 minus number 19.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded, and it requires a roll call vote.
Schultz.
Aye.
DeBoer. Aye. Cruz.
Aye.
Harding.
Aye.
Canfield.
Aye.
Cyrus.
Aye.
Dunn. Aye. All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And that'll take us over to 19, which is a resolution approving and authorizing submission of a railroad crossing elimination grant application to the Federal Railroad Administration and approving and authorizing a local match relative to abandoning and removing the Cedar Falls Rail Spur. Is there a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Councilmember Cyrus, you had a question or comment on this?
Yeah, I do. I have a comment, and I think Steve Bernard does a great job, so I'm not challenging that. The only thing I'm worried about is we have a resilience plan that goes out 50 years. I know we haven't bought coal in a while, but right now, UNI, I believe, is buying coal from us. Is that not true? Isn't Steve here? Anyway, I'll go on. They're having PCI truck it. Now, the other company, we're getting UNI is getting coal from the river, and I know trucking is the way they're getting that as well. It's been quite a while ago now, our coal used to be transported into the utility, and then there were trucks that took it up to UNI. I'm afraid of what's going to happen with the natural gas prices, and I would like to see those tracks remain for another long time. They're all in good shape. I don't think it's the problem with the condition of the tracks. It just doesn't seem correct to strangle our utility a chance to have the coal trains come in when we're set up to take it that way right now. So that's my concern. I'd like to see those tracks stay, and I'd like to see our utility always find the cheapest way and to have different alternatives to make electricity. That's all.
Thank you, Councilmember Cyrus. We do have CFU's General Manager, Steve Bernard, here tonight. If Mr. Bernard, if you wouldn't mind just letting us know a little bit of detail on the coal situation and transport, what that looks like today. He and I had spoken briefly about that at the Energy Fair last Saturday.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, staff. Good to see everyone. Councilman Cedar, thank you for the question. Appreciate you looking out for CFU's interests, as everyone here I know always has. So I thought I'd give a little background on our involvement in the project. I think maybe some of that history is, I think you might find it useful. And I really appreciate the fact that we've had a long-standing great relationship with the Iowa Northern Railway. Bill McGee is here tonight. Bill and Dan Saban from the railroad contacted me quite a few months ago about the future of the spur that serves CFU. They contacted us before even talking to the city because they wanted to relate with us as a customer of theirs to look at what arrangements might be possible. We had some discussions that led to me contacting Ron Gaines about this. And Ron right away said, hey, we're going to take CFU's lead on this. If this is not something that works for you guys, we're not going to be interested in supporting it as a city. So I appreciate that from Ron Gaines as a support from the city on this project and looking out for CFU as well. So it's a great question about the coal supply, and it's really the crux of this matter for us and the whole situation. And the reality of it is things have changed quite a bit in the energy business and in power production, not just here locally, but globally and certainly across the U.S., as I think you're all probably aware of. So we've burned coal at CFU for many, many years and continue to have access to that. But the landscape has changed quite a bit in the last 15 years to where natural gas is really our primary fuel burning here at Streeter Station. We have coal as basically a backup supply. If this goes forward and we're supportive of this, we think it's the right time for this kind of a project. We'll continue to have coal access at CFU through truck. In talking with the railway, there's possible unloading facilities in Waterloo or Shell Rock on their lines, where if and when the time comes that we would want to bring in coal by rail, we would have the ability to get that fairly close by rail and truck it the rest of the way if necessary. I think it was noted in your packet, we haven't had a coal delivery in Cedar Falls since 2010. It's been quite a few years. Realistically, we don't see that pattern reversing. Regardless of the political whims and the political climate, I think the day of burning massive amounts of coal here locally are probably behind us. And again, coal is really important for us as a backup fuel. We used that extensively in February of 2021 when we had the extreme cold stretch. Natural gas was really, really scarce at that point and extremely expensive. We all benefited from the ability to pull off of our coal pile and burn coal during that week. And our intentions are to continue to be able to do that well into the future. So really, we don't think the removal of these tracks limits us, quite frankly, at this stage. They haven't been used for many years. We don't see anywhere in the future the likelihood to need those either. And we recognize this as a benefit for the community from a safety perspective and an aesthetics perspective, and the property that can be acquired back for the city and possible landholders. The safety element of the crossings is always a concern. And the fact that there's restoration funds available through this grant to restore the streets, to restore property, to restore CFU property, because our rails that are on our property would be removed as part of this project as well. So that gives you a kind of a high-level overview, I guess, of CFU's perspective. Goes a lot farther than Councilman Cyrus was maybe asking for in terms of our perspective. We looked at this very closely. You know, when you talk about losing rail service, it has been a big deal at CFU for many, many years. up until about 15 years ago when the landscape changed pretty dramatically.
Thank you, Mr. Bernard. And that's the first I've heard of it. Does CFU sell coal to UNI?
We have sold a little bit to UNI, in part because we had such an excess pile at CFU that we didn't see using for many, many, many years. And UNI does still burn some coal up there. We saw it as a win-win to draw down our pile and allow them to purchase here locally.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
I should add, we have a pretty good supply of coal on hand already based on our run times from the last 3 years. We have years of coal available here already on site without even bringing in any more at the time.
That's really useful to know. Thank you. Councilmember DeBoer, you had a question or comment?
Sure, Steve. If the rail is removed, what additional cost would be to the electrical users of having to truck in additional coal?
Yeah.
I'd assume that'd be quite a bit more expensive because there'd be a lot more loads.
It can be depending on the volume that we would go through. Again, the last 10 years, we have brought in no coal in the last 10 years. So over the last 10 years, it would have been zero additional cost because we just haven't had the need to truck any in. So it's hard for me to project in the future. It could be another 10 or 20 years before we'd ever bring in any more coal, if ever. So it's hard to me project at that time how much we would be bringing in and what that cost difference is. It's more costly by truck if you're bringing in large volumes. We just don't see that occurring anywhere in the future.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Schultz.
Yeah, Steve, was there discussion about this already? You said that it's been 10 years since you brought any in, 15 years ago since you really changed it. You know, there was a lot of expense put into the First Street crossing, and then on Main Street, there's crossings. Well, there's crossings throughout that's been work done over the last 15 years.
Right.
What, is this a surprise to you that, hey, all of a sudden we're going to take this out? Or what,
No.
what decision-making did we do in the past that we're going,
Yeah.
"Oh, we should have
Yeah.
taken it out"?
Yep, it's a good question. A number of years ago, we worked with the railroad in the city to restore some of the crossings, not the First Street crossing, but other crossings through town, back when we were actually bringing in a fair amount of coal. So this was back in the mid-2000s when we were running pretty regularly. At that time, the railway was considering abandonment, quite frankly, because the usage was relatively small. We actually prepaid some freight agreements with the railway for an agreement for them to keep the rail tracks in place at that time. At that time, we were using coal pretty regularly. So there was a lot of restoration costs years ago on those crossings. And then the First Street crossing was, of course, a few years ago. And at that time, no, we did not see this coming. And I think really this is an opportunity because of the federal grant money that's available now, is why the timing is being brought forth by the railway.
Okay.
City staff and Ron may be able to add to that as well, but that's my perspective on it.
So even if, I guess for Ron, even if everything was still about $1 million that as a city we'd be looking at on this project, or?
So we'd be looking at restoration costs through some of those areas. If the railroad decided just to go through and do an abandonment, what they could do is just go down and restore their 20 feet. So imagine that down Fifth Street, and you would have just a 20-foot swath. What we're projecting within this grant is total reconstruction of many of those streets, Iowa Street, Fifth Street, and some of those. And so really it's, I forget what the dollar figure is in there, about a $1.3 million. And that would just be a fraction of what that cost for reconstruction would be along those corridors.
And when's this happening or proposed to happen?
So in the grant, we've had to start explaining that whole process. And I think the railroad could go through and actually remove those rails quite quickly. But the things that we were considering in the construction staging is really how many streets can we really actually get blocked off and reconstructed in the downtown area. Now remember, we're also going to have First Street under construction in 2023. So 2023, when you're looking at the State Street crossing, the Main Street crossing, Fifth Street, Iowa Street, and First Street. So we'll be looking at staging that over a 3-year period.
Okay, other questions? Councilmember Cruz, you had a comment?
Yes, thank you. It mentions here the sale of the right-of-way. Well, maybe not assuming, but would this be for $1, or will it be fair market value, so much as a foot, like when we buy right-of-way for expanding Main Street, that sort of thing? I'm kind of curious.
So actually, within the grant is there's actually an assessment or an appraisal done for the right-of-way, and that's part of the grant opportunity that's in there. I can't remember offhand. I think it was 2.6 million that the right-of-way is worth. Well, at the end of this, that right-of-way would become the city's property. So we would own that right-of-way from all the way from First Street down through Iowa Street, Fifth Street, State Street, going down into adjacent to Cedar Falls Utilities property. And maybe one of the biggest benefits out of all of this would be going across the river there, and with that bridge, with the potential to actually extend a trail down into that area.
So then citizens could approach the city if they want to score out the corner of a property that might have been a little triangle for the track to go through?
There is an area, yes, that actually goes up through there. I think that would be a conversation that we'd have to have with the city council. Is that right away that maybe you want to preserve and maintain ownership just in case there is the need in the future for rail, so we did have an alignment that would go in there? Or is it something that that we do want to sell back or deed back to property owners to maybe square off their lot, or as you said?
And that would be a comparable value as what the city's paying. So it'd be a net zero potentially?
That price would be decided by the city council, yes.
Councilor DeBeer.
Well, the right-of-way would become the city's regardless of whether it went through the grant or whether it was abandoned, wouldn't it?
If they actually abandon the rail, they would still own the right-of-way. The Iowa Northern would actually still own the right-of-way. What we've seen in other communities is railroad that abandon, then usually those will go to a tax sale, and some other entity would end up owning it.
And my other question is, what is the condition of this line? I know that we just talked about the intersection at First Street is being redone, but how is the rest of the line?
So I think I would leave that to the rail operators. The only comment I would make is part of what they're using this grant for is to salvage some of those materials to use in a yard elsewhere.
So now I would invite for Mr. McGee, if you would like to comment tonight on the
Mr.
project
Mayor?
and the condition of the rails.
I just have a quick comment.
Sure. Before you go.
I just want to thank Steve for all his hard work down there at the utilities. I know he's been there a long, long time. I very much respect his opinion. I'm always just so conservative that I'd like to see those stay for a while. That's all. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. So for Mr. McGee, the question was about the quality of the rail line, and also if you can comment on something Ron and I talked about earlier, for what the rail line would potentially be used for revenue if the rail line had to stay, that it wouldn't just sit idle, you would need to use it, and what that might look like.
Sure.
And welcome.
My name's Bill McGee. I'm general manager for the Iowa Northern. I'm a resident of Cedar Falls. I've lived here 20 years now. And worked for the Iowa Northern all this time. To answer your first question, the line is in pretty good shape. We don't have any problems with it. We don't have any problems with using the line to come in and out of CFU. Having said that, to get over to the side of what it can be used for, when you take a look at the line and you add up all the footage of the crossings that are involved, and it's a total of technically 22 grade crossings across this distance. Over half of that distance is merely used to get from the railroad back to the yard. So the capacity of the yard is about 100 cars. That's about all it'll hold. And with 100 cars in there, it's stuffed full. So the problem we've had with it, even going back to when CFU was receiving unit trains of coal, we'd bring the train in, and then in order to make any moves to put the cars in the various tracks, we'd have to pull up through town and then back up, and everybody knows how that is. You know, when you're blocking the crossings, it's quite dangerous. It's dangerous to the public. When a train pulls up and stops, everybody looks at it and they think, well, when is it going to move again? And that's an invitation for trespassing, for climbing over, climbing under, and that type of thing. So it's always been really dangerous, and it's been a real concern of ours when we have to come in here to service back in the days when we were bringing coal in. So Iowa Northern's a good citizen. We've always stuck by CFU. We've always been here. The problem we've got is what else can the line be used for to generate any revenue for the railroad? And the fact of the matter is we have used the line in the past for storing cars. We've had cars in here even recently that we just pulled out over the past couple of weeks. Storage doesn't pay very much. The fact of the matter is it doesn't pay the bills to keep the track open. In order to get the cars out of here, you have to take them and put them all together into a train. And when you do that, once again, it stretches up through 5th Street. You have to pump up the air on the train. You have to test the brakes, walk the train. It takes a lot of time. And in order to legally move a train in and out, you got to do this air brake test. So just to kind of give you some idea of what it's like for the railroad, it's a hard place to operate. So then taking it and answering your second question, what can be done with it? Well, storage is pretty tough. There's not enough track back in here to hold enough cars to make the storage worthwhile because it's so hard to access for us. So then you think, well, okay, what else can we try to do? Can we try to attract some kind of a customer to locate back here? And the fact of the matter is the yard is inside of the floodplain. The flood wall goes around the yard. There's gates back there. We've had it flooded twice in 08 and 16 to the point to where it affected the rail cars. We had to come in and do quite a bit of expensive work to make the cars safe to move again. So you really can't find a customer that's going to locate in a floodplain. That's the dilemma. What do we do with it? And quite frankly, that's what it's all about. And you might ask, why now? Why is this an issue now? In November of last year, November of 21, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act appropriated, if I use the correct word, $573 billion for the Federal Railroad Administration to use for railroad crossing eliminations. And we were made aware of that back in January, February of this year. And I believe sometime around that time was when our president talked to Steve about this. So it's not something that hasn't been thought about and discussed at length. And we felt like the time was right to potentially be able to apply for this. And we felt it would be good for the railroad and for the city. And to elaborate on the relocation, what we would like to do is take our assets that are here in town, and if you added up all the track feet, it's about 11,600 feet of track, a little bit over 2 miles. What we would like to do is take that and relocate it to a location that's safe to operate. It's safe for our people, it's safe for the community, and it doesn't block crossings and cause problems. That's why now we have this opportunity and we'd like to take advantage of it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McGee.
Sure.
Do any council members have questions for Mr. McGee? Yes,
Just a quick follow-up to that. Would this relocated line also serve Cedar Falls, or could it be not even in Iowa?
Oh, it would be in Iowa. The Iowa Northern only runs in Iowa.
Okay.
We run from Manly down to Cedar Rapids.
But would the relocated line still service our town?
Yes. Yep, and Steve mentioned we have talked about, excuse me, we've talked about if the need existed, we could make a site to take in a train load of coal and offload it and truck it in the last 15 or 20 miles, that type of thing.
Okay, any other questions or comments from council? And any questions from the public? You, sir, you had wanted to bring the item up, so did you have something you wanted to say about it? Thank you very much, Mr. McGee. I think that's all the questions we have. If you could just give your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Dwayne Hamilton, 1911 Victor Drive, here in Cedar Falls.
Welcome.
I have some timing issues. Number one, the first that most of the public knew of this was when the article appeared in the Courier on Friday. And with Saturday and Sunday, nobody to contact if you wanted information. I think this action is premature. And to abandon the rail track would be two things. One, economically, it would be a detriment to ability to transport fuel to CFU, and once removed, it can never be replaced. Now, the federal grant money, I have a problem with that because grant money, where does that come from? You and I and everybody else. The less money we spend, the less money you spend personally, the better off you are. And but like I said, there's little time for the public to be aware of what was being proposed. I think this is premature at this time, and I think we don't know what the price of fuel is going to be for transporting it by truck. We know what it's done to diesel fuel all over else. While the gasoline may have come down, diesel fuel has not. So we don't want to get ourselves between a rock and a hard place. Because like I say, once this is gone, it's gone forever. And the other item outside of this is that railroads have always been a part of Cedar Falls and its history. I think to remove it would be a travesty.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments from the public? Okay, any from the council for closing? Okay, seeing none, then it's been motioned and seconded to have a resolution approving and authorizing submission of a railroad crossing elimination grant application to the Federal Railroad Administration and approving and authorizing the local match relative to abandoning and removing the Cedar Falls rail spur. It's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Schultz?
Nay.
DeBoer?
Nay.
Cruz?
Aye.
Harding?
Aye.
Canfield?
Nay.
Sires?
Nay.
Dunn? Aye. 3 voting aye, 4 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and so that does not pass. That takes us over to 22, which is allowing bills and claims for September 19th, 2022. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any council discussion? Okay, seeing none. Any from the public? Okay, so motion and second and requires a roll call vote.
Schultz?
Aye.
DeBoer?
Aye.
Cruz?
Aye.
Harding?
Aye.
Canfield?
Aye.
Sires?
Aye.
Dunn? Aye. All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And looking at council referrals, do we have any referrals tonight? Okay, seeing none. Then moving over to council updates and announcements. Do we have any updates or announcements tonight?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Cruz.
Kind of a minor thing here on sequencing. If we could have council updates and announcements before the referrals, so that if something is said during the update, then we could follow up with a referral after that instead of waiting for 2 weeks.
That would be a matter of changing the admin policy or the council meeting procedures. Okay. So we could bring that up at the either council goal setting session or in the next referral.
Okay.
In 2 weeks.
In 3 weeks, actually, right?
3 weeks.
Oh.
Yeah.
Any other council updates tonight? Okay, seeing none, then we're going to entertain a motion to move to executive session to discuss property acquisition per Iowa Code Section 2151J to discuss the purchase or sale of particular real estate where premature disclosure could be reasonably expected to increase the price the government would have to pay for that property or reduce the price the government body would receive for that property, and for discussion of the city administrator's performance pursuant to Iowa Code Section 2151I and City Code Section 2217. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion and second, and it requires a roll call vote.
Schultz,
Aye.
DeBoer,
Aye.
Aye.
Cruz, Harding,
Aye.
Canfield,
Aye.
Sires,
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And so what that means is that we're going to use this space for our executive session tonight, which means we have to clear the room, unfortunately. We will re-adjourn in open session at the end, but all we're going to do is adjourn at that point. So this would conclude anything interesting for the public that would happen at this meeting tonight. Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing council for executive session.